And first, Washington stepping up plans for Syria's post-Assad future and getting ready for worst-case scenarios, including a possible chemical weapons attack. US Foreign Policy Chief Hillary Clinton is in Turkey as Ankara steps up threats to weigh in with force if it feels threatened from across the border. Washington's also pledged a further $5.5 million in aid to Syrian rebels, bringing the total then to $82 million total funding to the opposition since the conflict began last year. Riot police clashed with protesters from a leftist party trying to reach the building where Clinton was to meet Prime Minister Erdogan. Officers responded with batons and tear gas. At least 5 people were injured. Let's get some thoughts on these latest developments then. Talk to anti-war activist and journalist Don DeBar. He's on the line from the US. Hi, Don. Hillary Clinton's visit comes, excuse me, as Ankara's threatening to step up the use of threats in force in the Syrian conflict. Meantime, they're also saying they're preparing for the worst-case scenario there, as I just mentioned. Maybe a chemical attack. Is that scenario, a chemical attack, a real possibility?
There's been some discussion of the possibility of a so-called black ops chemical attack where some of the U.S. agent forces that are on the ground in Syria fighting the government would launch a chemical attack and attempt to lay the blame for that on the Syrian government. I think that's a real possibility. The discussion by Clinton of the possibility of a no-fly zone and aerial support for the insurgency or the, the fighting against the government, which is a violation, by the way, of the UN Charter, of the Geneva Accords, and just about all international law that bears on this, is a frightening but continuation of the policy that the United States has conducted around the world since 1953, but certainly since the first Iraq War, the sanctions period under Hillary's husband, Bill Clinton, and straight through the Bush and Obama administrations.
Don, in this case, of course, Western powers have long said all along their actions are for the sake of the whole Syrian people, but with more cash and arms going to the rebels, how is that actually going to help bring peace? It's not really working so far, is it?
Well, it is actually antithetical to peace. The conduct of war against the government on the soil where the Syrian people live obviously cannot bring peace to the Syrian people. It's intended to provoke a response from the government. The government has the choice of either not responding and allowing armed terrorists to blow things up, to blow up their troops, and to blow up and execute civilians, all of which has been happening, or to fight back, which of course means that there are parts of the cities that get bombed and there are people that are displaced. These two choices are what are being presented by American policy in Syria.
Turkey's, of course, a key player here. That's why Hillary Clinton's there. Now, the country's allegedly been funneling weapons to the Syrian rebels through a secret base near the border. Has the country and its allies, do you think, properly weighed up the dangers of supporting forces with links, at the end of the day, we believe, to al-Qaeda? And particularly, of course, all this going on its borders.
You might ask the same question of the U.S. alliance with al-Qaeda on and off since its creation in Afghanistan in the early 80s, because we know the answer to that. The answer is that it's a very dangerous game to play. You are, on the one hand, creating an enemy that has no state ties, really isn't domiciled anywhere, and that just is highly weaponized, very angry, and extremely religious, I guess, superstitious, angry, and so they go around and kill whoever they decide to kill at the moment. Sometimes it's people in New York City, sometimes it's people in Afghanistan, sometimes it's people in Russia, sometimes it's people in Lebanon and Syria, and right now the focal point is Syria.
While you're on the line, Don, I mean, Qatar's reportedly been trying to bribe the Syrian ambassador in Mauritania to take the rebels' side, allegedly promising $1 million in political asylum. What does that tell us about the whole affair, maybe the desperation of it?
Well, first it tells us the nature of the defections. We know that this effort to buy people off has been going on. It happened in Libya also. You'll see these staged events on the ground that take place with these staged defections, and now that the information is coming out, we understand the nature of the defections. These are people that are being purchased.
Don, thanks for your thoughts. Don DeBar, anti-war activist and journalist on the line from the States there.
Thank you, Kevin.